signed up for Meetup in Australia,
Uh-huh.
and then I thought, well, when I'm moving to Chicago, like it'll be a good way to meet new people and find stuff. So it was through that somebody had posted about the Learn-a-Palooza. And I was like, whoa, that's really cool. And I signed up for a few things, but at the last minute, I decided to go to Lakes of Fire, which was the regional, you know it. So I missed out on Learn-a-Palooza, I have to admit. But still, my interest and my curiosity was really piqued by like the fact that you could organize that many people to come and expand their learning, but also to share their knowledge. And what I picked up from reading on your website was I feel like it has like a lot of principles of, I guess of just like basic community engagement and community organizing and like open space technology, whereas like everyone is valuable and has something to share.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
just the fact that you're able to like imbue that idea in so many people just kind of blew my mind, because I guess like I can't help but contrast with the society in Australia that I've been used to for the last 10 years. I feel like people are a lot more hesitant to, even get outside their own front doors, let alone, their own skin and their boundaries to say, hey, I have this to offer, or hey, I have this need. Those are both, I think, opportunities for vulnerability. So I wonder like if you feel that maybe Chicagoans are just a little more receptive to being that extroverted, or did you weave some magic?
That's a great question. I think, like, I personally believe that, like, people are really, like, open to helping each other. They just need really, like, clear opportunities to do it. And so I feel like CommuniTeach and Learn-a-Palooza, we were able to get, 100 people interested in sharing their skills, in part because we did just kind of promote that, like, you can teach anything, like, it's about kind of, like, connecting with your community. So once it becomes more accessible, like, our belief is that, like, you can kind of pull a lot of people into these, like, vibrant learning communities of learning and sharing. And it doesn't have to be just, like, the most, like the Burning Man community, the couch surfing community. There are folks who, like, do kind of share these passions already, which I think is awesome. But our goal is also to kind of spill over those same principles into, like, everyone in Chicago who maybe isn't initially as comfortable, but once they see it is easy and kind of fun to share a skill and connect with your neighbor, our hope is we can kind of, like, change attitudes, like, everywhere. I've, like, couch surfed a few times, so I'm, like, a part of that community. And I feel like CommuniTeach is kind of, like, it's kind of like a couch surfing for learning, where it really just has those principles of people, sharing their skills and, like, learning something new. It's not kind of just, like, taking or, like, paying for things. It's really just a community organizing kind of model.
I mentioned that one of my main research foci is alternative or emerging economic structures. So that's of particular interest to me. Again, with my involvement with Burning Man, my new involvement with Burning Man, with the decommodification is one of their 10 main principles. And that's obviously intact in the CommuniTeach framework. How important is that to the CommuniTeach framework?
That piece is, like, hugely important. Kind of both that element you're talking about, kind of like sustainable, like, different kind of forms of community. Like, really think that CommuniTeach is powerful in part because you can apply it to, like, any neighborhood, like maybe more like traditionally underserved or lower income neighborhoods, and really provide this model where they can kind of be empowered to share their own skills with each other and, like, not have to again be spending capital and, like, seeking outside of their community to be able to have a lot of resources. It's really kind of tapping into all that potential that already exists.
Yeah.
And recognizing that you don't have to, you don't have to go outside your community. You don't have to pay people hundreds or thousands of dollars to teach you something. Like, all of those knowledge and resources are already there, and we're just providing a way for it to be a bit more organized and accessible.
I think it's really interesting that you're mentioning how, you can apply it to any group. And forgive me, but, I'm just trying to be objective and critical, because it's on online forum. So how do we ensure, or do you try to ensure, equality of access?
No, that's a great question, and one we're still kind of grappling with.
Yeah.
We're working with the Senior Artist Network right now, which is a group of kind of like older women who are artists it's a network of about 150 women. And we're trying to brainstorm with them, since several of them are not so computer literate, on ways we can provide access in different ways to our list of classes by maybe having a supplementary kind of posting on, like, a community board or something like that. So it's not something I think we've perfected, but it's something that we're very focused on trying to provide more, like, entryways into CommuniTeach, as well as if there's a way we can kind of, like, for particular neighborhoods that maybe are have less access to broadband, like, figuring out ways we can maybe, like, pair our CommuniTeach like general skill sharing with some more targeted computer literacy classes and kind of work to educate people on the spaces for computers that do exist, like your public libraries. Because I feel like once people kind of like think about like space and like internet access in a slightly different way, you realize that there are more opportunities. You just need to kind of be aware of them. But we're still not, I mean, we're not perfect at it, but it is definitely, I think, a really important tenet of CommuniTeach that like everybody really means like everybody. Like, and that's, you know, there's always kind of a, it's like always easier to get kind of the lower hanging fruit of people. So, you know, like Learnapalooza did still skew a little bit, you know, like young professionals, like a little bit liberal kind of like people like me or you, which is great to reach those people. But we think that if it's going to be like really a transformative movement, we have to not just provide a cool opportunity for people who already are kind of immersed in that culture, but really reach out to, you know, just a really wide swatch of the population from like all sorts of different backgrounds, because we think that they all, like, they have a great opportunity to be able to participate in CommuniTeach, but also they like provide so much value. Like they have a totally different set of skills that are equally, if not more, useful, and kind of like create like a much richer community if we can incorporate them all.
You mentioned the Senior Artist Network, is that what it's called?
Yep.
Did they come to you?
I met them, CommuniTeach had a booth at the Creative Career Expo, which was just kind of like a little expo, kind of like a science fair almost for different artist organizations. And so I talked to them at their booth, but then they invited me to come to speak to their organization. Because again, some like the core skills I have about like making like I use MailChimp to like make email campaigns. There's like little things like that they don't have any experience with. It's like very helpful and kind of provides more infrastructure for their organization. But again, they're like filled with skills. It's like a whole collective of artists. So like how amazing if we can kind of unlock that potential as well.
So, I feel like you were saying, you know, you had something to offer them, and you could see something that would be valuable to others as well. So, is there kind of a bit of a trade or a tit for tat ethos?
Like it's not required, but it's kind of encouraged. Again, kind of like couch surfing. It's not like you have to host somebody to be able to stay at somebody else's couch, but just kind of like the community like is only able to function as an ecosystem if people do have that kind of, you know, give a little, get a little kind of attitude in some sense. So yeah, we don't require, we might eventually like incorporate kind of that sharing more in a more integrated way into our website. Maybe there'll be like community credits, and like you start with 3 community credits, and every time you learn something you know, give 1 to that person. Every time you teach something, you get 1. If we feel like it's necessary. But we've seen so far that once people kind of realize that there is like a wide mix of skills that they can share with people. It can be like public speaking, it can be how to make email newsletters, it can be, you know, intro to community organizing. You would really like the intro to community organizing workshops, by the way. You should definitely come to the next one. So he's just like a really interesting and like really motivated guy, just trying to like figure out ways we can sort of fight against like the power structures that exist and really like cause positive, meaningful change in our communities.
Awesome. How did you meet him?
I think he, I'm not sure how he found out about CommuniTeach. He just signed up on the website and kind of like created a community organizing 101, learned it, and I was like, this sounds awesome. Great. And I took really detailed notes for community organizing 201, and so I think I might maybe try to like teach the workshop myself from kind of his guide, because I think that again is like one thing about CommuniTeach that we haven't fully implemented yet, but I think would be really powerful, where if there are just completely open kind of like lesson plans, then like one person can teach community organizing, but then, you know, of those 8 attendees, like half of them can feel empowered then to go back to their neighborhood and teach that workshop to an additional, you know, 8 to 10 people. And like suddenly you have this kind of army of community organizers who are all empowered with the tools they need to really make positive change. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
You've done such a great job with the website that it keeps it really fun and lighthearted, because I was going there and going, shit, I don't know what I can offer. And I thought of like one thing, and then how you have the quiz set up to just kind of start getting you. It doesn't necessarily come at you with answers of like, these are what all your skills are, because how could a quiz that remains fun and lighthearted do that? But just primes you to start thinking a little bit broader about your assets.
Oh, that's really well said. We should like even more explicitly maybe say that at the end of the quiz, that like this was meant to be kind of a starting point, so you can kind of brainstorm. I like that a lot.
Something that I would like to revisit too, what you were saying about how you had a booth, the stall where you met the Artist Network. That's pretty creative networking. What other kinds of networking do you do to promote CommuniTeach?
That's a good question too. So like last week I went to Jelly, which is this once a week meetup of entrepreneurs and developers that happens in this coffee shop in Lincoln Park. And, like that was really cool, just to kind of like connect with this group of people on the technology side. And it was, again, like, it's funny how, like, once you have that kind of attitude of skill sharing, like, you can kind of see, you can help kind of foster it in, like, lots of different contexts. Like, at Jelly, like, I was sort of, like, asking this guy a little bit about search engine optimization, and then he just spent kind of, like, 15 minutes explaining the basics to me and, like, showing how I could use it for CommuniTeach. And, again, like, those, like, little just positive interactions of people helping each other are, again, exactly what we're trying to kind of replicate on a broader scale. So that was cool, just to kind of meet them.
That brings me to one of my main questions that I ask everybody, which is, do you think that what you're involved in, do you think that CommuniTeach is, of course it is a unique organization, but is it part of a wider trend?
I mean, I think it is. There's kind of like a bigger trend of, I think it's called like collaborative consumption. So it's just this idea in general of like better kind of leveraging and organizing the resources that we have. So like there's a website called Neighbor Goods, and what they do is encourage people to share, like their drills and their like tools and stuff, which I think is great. And Couchsurfing has people kind of share their home spaces, and like CommuniTeach more about people kind of sharing their knowledge. So I think it is in the context of a broader and more and a very positive movement, I think, of resource sharing and increased connection, not just online, but like using kind of the web as a tool to facilitate like offline rich interactions.
Do you have any theories on what's behind this trend?
I mean, I think part of it might be kind of like Web 2.0 was all about like online connecting, like Facebook, Twitter. It really kind of helped people to realize that there was excitement and value in talking with people outside of their immediate social network. But I think as that piece of the trend has gotten more mature, you kind of realize it's not quite enough. Like, you want to connect with people, but you realize that just connecting online is not quite that level of depth that I feel like people are ultimately realize they're seeking. And so that's how it then kind of evolves into an online to offline opportunities for connection.
That's a really interesting connection that I hadn't put together. I think that's really meaningful.
Oh, thank you.
I remember in a planning class, because I'm doing a master's in community development planning, we were talking about if like hyper technology, I feel like we're in hyper technology, if that's actually decreased the need, for people to fly around the world. And, now we can Skype. You don't have to, take a boat for 3 months, let alone, But it's actually increased because we are meeting so many more people, but we aren't content with the Skype screen.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's kind of like the gateway drug of connections, but then it just like kind of whets your appetite for more richer context, which I feel like the best way to connect with people like always is in person. Like, I don't really even like using the phone, as maybe you could tell. I'm like, I'll maybe call if we have to, otherwise I'll just see you in person. I just feel like stuff like this, where you really kind of get to know a person, is just really meaningful. And like, it's been so exciting for me how many like CommuniTeach friends who are not just like friends, like really good friends I've met just kind of through like learning and sharing and connecting with people.
Yeah, so tell me, how did CommuniTeach become born?
So I, back in college, I went to school at UNC, and I used to like fall asleep on the couch a lot at night because my roommate went to bed early, and like the housekeepers who worked in my dorm would like always wake me up and be like, Sarah, you need to go to class, Sarah, you need to go to class. And so they were really like wonderful and just kind of opened up my eyes to this broader community that I was a part of, that like I didn't always necessarily recognize, but was making a huge impact on my education. And so I created this tutoring program that matched UNC students with the children of the UNC staff members for kind of free private tutoring. So like you could fill out that you can teach, middle school math, and I would match you with a girl who needed help with, 8th grade geometry, whose, mother worked in like the food service or something at the dining hall. Wow. And so that program was really simple, but it was really cool, because like the children, they like really were seeing like measurable academic outcomes, because like one-on-one private tutoring just like is really effective. And like the students, like they were really excited because they want to they love UNC like I do, like they want to give back, but they needed a really concrete way to do so that kind of respected their time and leveraged their skills. And then the parents, like they were so appreciative, just in part because they were, getting tutoring, but also just because it was really meaningful to them to realize that the UNC students like cared about them and wanted to kind of contribute towards their community. So it was just really cool, and like I was really kind of excited at the impact on a small scale. But then when I graduated UNC and moved to Chicago, I realized that kind of my tutoring program was cool, but in some ways it was kind of limited in the way it saw the world, because in reality, in a city like Chicago, there's not just the people who have the skills and the people who need the skills. Everyone has both things they could share and things they could learn, and kind of create a platform to enable people to do that. Then the whole city is able to become, smarter, more connected, just like a better place to live. And so that's kind of how CommuniTeach, it evolved into CommuniTeach.
Okay, so this is the big challenge for me in my life. How does this super awesome idea hit the ground and actually become something real?
Yeah, so the way CommuniTeach was able to then exist in reality is my friend from high school, Ben, one day mentioned he knew how to build websites and asked if I had any ideas for a website. And I was like, I do have an idea for a website. It's called CommuniTeach and it does this. And so he got really excited about it, and we kind of worked together to get the really rudimentary website off the ground. And at first the website was terrible. It only allowed one-on-one learners, which I started to realize afterwards was not the best entry point, because the vast majority of the population isn't necessarily comfortable meeting one-on-one with somebody that they don't know for the first time. So we kind of evolved it to enable Learn-Its, which are those kind of group events with multiple learners, which was good. And then we kind of evolved it to also have Learnapaloozas, which were bigger festivals to really educate a lot of people on kind of the value of skill sharing. And now we're also rolling out a network feature, hopefully next month. And so that's a way that just within a specific community, you could have a private CommuniTeach page to just share skills within your company or within the Burning Man Chicago community. So a way to just kind of provide easier and easier entryways into this kind of philosophy, but with the hope of really then encouraging people to grow and go beyond their social circle. So you can kind of learn just from the Burning Man Chicago community who you already kind of know, but then one day you might get kind of a message from CommuniTeach being hey Miriam, you said you want to learn pinata making. There's no one in Burning Man Chicago who can teach pinata making, but there's 3 other people in, Logan Square, if you live in Logan Square, who can teach pinata making. Why don't you message one of them? So slowly, so we can kind of recognize that not everybody is as flexible and kind of eager to meet total strangers as maybe I am, but we want to still provide a place for kind of all those people to come into the CommuniTeach community and realize the value and excitement that kind of comes from sharing your skills. But we actually are not a 501c3. That's why I think it might be kind of confusing. We actually are a for-profit social enterprise, in part because we felt when we did kind of the research of different grants that existed, we felt CommuniTeach was kind of in this nebulous in-between zone. We really believe in kind of helping everybody connect, rich people, poor people, people in all neighborhoods. So it doesn't quite fit into the funding priorities of malaria nets in Africa, or arts programs for low-income high school kids, and
Sometimes grants can actually create boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. So we've instead tried to see if we can come up with revenue-generating ideas that are still completely aligned with our mission. So we're also testing out this summer private networks for corporations, so that they have a way that they can pay to have additional features, so that their employees can exchange job-related skills, but also go golfing together. And for us, that's good for the company because it saves them a lot of money for not having to bring in external trainers, and it also kind of makes for a better workplace. But it's still 100%. Oh yeah, go ahead. 100% kind of aligned with our mission of connecting people, increasing learning opportunities, and such.
So, how are you running it financially right now?
So we received the $5,000 from the Sprout Fund, and then $10,000 in angel investment from one kind of individual who kind of believed in our mission and kind of has invested in CommuniTeach. And that's it so far. The rest is all kind of volunteer based. We're kind of now looking at ways we can start to kind of quickly generate revenue on the corporate side, as otherwise we might kind of put more money in personally, or else otherwise try to figure out how we can keep on doing what we're doing.
How long has CommuniTeach been going?
About a year and a half in kind of its current form, I'd say. Okay. We have about 2,500 members currently.
How much time a week do you spend with CommuniTeach?
I was spending maybe, back when I was still at my full-time job, it was maybe 15, 20 hours a week. But now that I'm full-time CommuniTeach for the summer, it's 60, 70 hours a week, and it's awesome. I love it. I meeting so many interesting people like you, and just doing so much, many interesting things. It's really great.
What's your staffing structure?
So it's me and my co-founder, Ben, who's the one who built the website. we have one freelance web developer and one freelance web designer, and then we have kind of two like CommuniTeach ambassador kind of like fellow community organizers. One who's based in Boston and is working on growing the community there, and one who's based in Chicago. So this is a whole team of 6.
And everyone's volunteering at the moment?
No, the freelance web developer and the freelance web designer we are paying.
And I did see on the website as well that you're saying, I think that you've reached critical mass in Chicago and Boston, was that right?
In Chicago and Pittsburgh.
And Pittsburgh.
Yep.
But you're looking for anybody in other cities that'd be interested in trying to build up.
Exactly. So yeah, again, if you have any kind of like friends in other cities who you think would kind of share this philosophy, we are just very eager to see ways we can kind of replicate the Skillshare in Chicago and like lots and lots of communities.
And are you just looking at U.S. cities?
No, we could go international as well.
What about possibilities for somebody in Florida who has a skill that somebody in Washington State could use?
Yep, that's a great question. Like, we just feel like there's such like unique value in kind of like meeting your neighbors, and like it's strange how like there's a lot of ways to kind of learn things from like people online or like across the world, but like there's not so many ways to just like meet face to face with someone and kind of connect. So we're currently focused more on in-person like local learning, but it might be something we eventually expand to do. And we really kind of encourage other organizations to try to meet that need of ways to connect people in different cities. We're just kind of focused first on seeing if we can really kind of just like rebuild a city and the neighborhood and kind of help people realize the resources that are literally like in their backyard, on the floor above them, stuff like that.
Yeah, are you familiar with placemaking? Like, basically, like the difference between a space and a place is meaning. Meaning and identity, I think. And so I've been involved for a couple of years in various forms of placemaking, which is usually getting geographical neighborhoods, people together to come out into their public spaces and create something beautiful. And it can be a lasting artwork, or it can be, you know, a potluck. But it doesn't really matter, because it's the relationships that are formed in the process of creation that are the really, like, that's the gold, right? It's not that the actual thing. I mean, some like they paint the intersections and, you know, create some really beautiful things that on their own stand as landmarks, and so now to other people passing through, that place has meaning because they see something different. But for everyone involved, that place has meaning because they have the memory and they have the relationships created, wonderful. Right? It sounds to me like that's kind of similar to CommuniTeach's model, where yeah, the learning's great, but the relationships are really the goal.
Yeah, I think that for us, at least, and I think it's kind of a little bit different for each person who comes to CommuniTeach, but for me at least, yeah, I think the relationships are the ultimate goal. Like, we just think that like learning is like one of the greatest ways of teaching to like build a relationship.
I'm glad. I feel like I've learned so much, and I have so much respect for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Like,
yeah, I mean,
really.
But again, like really, I'm just driven by like the people I meet. Like, there was like a knitting learn it yesterday, and it was just like so nice, just like these people from like different neighborhoods, like different backgrounds, just kind of coming together and like wanting to like help each other. Like, that's what inspires me. Like, I'm just kind of the enabler of it all.